when he was doing Tesla, I mean, he went bankrupt, basically. He's been public about this. I'm not speaking out of school. He basically went bankrupt, and a friend of ours was loaning him money to keep him afloat. And I famously had dinner with him one time, and he showed me the Model S car on his phone. He was getting in the middle of his divorce, and he's told the story publicly. And I was like, I have a couple of $1 million I can loan you. He's like, don't bother. I'm done. Tesla's going to go out of business in 2 weeks. And I was like, really? And he's like, because I had seen in Gawker, they said it was going to go out of business next month. I said, is it true? And he's like, no, it's not true. I was like, oh, thank God. He's like, we have 2 weeks, not 4. And I was like, whoa.
Okay, so you succeed in all these things, and then there's a whole bunch of you that all kind of came up at the same time, that everyone sort of knows their names, and obviously you're on All In with some of these guys and everything else. One of the things that I found super interesting over the last couple of years is that when I was sitting down with tech people particularly, and VC guys, and just this other world that I wasn't in, I would sit down with these guys because they had built all these things. And what I always thought was interesting, and this was probably before you guys had All In, I was always like, all these guys kind of want to be me. And I don't mean that as a pat on my back, but I always thought it was odd. Like I sense that what they really want is a show. Like they made money, which is awesome. And a lot of times I was talking to guys when I had no money, and I was like, God, you have the greatest life ever. But then they would walk out of my house, and I'd be like, I'm pretty sure what they really want was to have what I have. Yeah. Now you have both of those things, and there's a lot of you guys that have both of those things. What do you make of that just sort of premise generally?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that happened was our industry was under the radar. So when I would go out in Los Angeles and I had the blogging company and this podcast, people would recognize me, in tech or whatever. And I was like very micro celebrity, but like, 1 out of 100 people at a party might have heard of what I was doing.
In your world, you were known. And then
And I, one time I was out with Elon and they're like, oh, what does your friend do? And I'm like, oh, he's working on a car company and rocket ships. And they're like, does he make movies? I'm like, no, I don't. Elon, do you make movies? He's like, no, I don't make movies. And they're like, okay, fuck you guys. And they just walk off. Like, these are known celebrities or whatever. And so our industry was very, bespoke, tiny, in a large way irrelevant. Like you had Steve Jobs, who was larger than life. Larry and Sergey at Google were becoming a little bit of household names, but then they kind of went underground because they really didn't want to be, public facing. They were more introverted,
What about Paul Allen? I really only know him because he owned the Blazers, and I told you before, I love Clyde the Glide.
And he liked to play guitars, and he had like a bunch of people come over his house and play Dead shows and stuff like that. So, he was
I could definitely see that. That was like a Bill Walton connection there. To the Dead.
I just know musicians who used to go and play at his place in Beverly Hills. He had all these guitars, and he just liked to jam with people. He was smart, I think he realized, I only have a certain amount of times around this the sun, and I'm just going to make the best of it. And he had gotten sick early in life, so he valued life. And he was like, I don't need to be here for the 12th release of Windows. I can go do some other stuff. But our industry was largely under the radar. And the way we sort of integrated with the world was Steve Jobs would do a keynote, but not many people did that. Steve was a showman. And then you would speak at a tech conference, once a year. There would be a tech conference twice a year. And then TED started. So, it's like a third tech people at that. So we go to TED and there'd be 600 people there. It was still underground. It wasn't shared online. And you got to press once in a while. So you had a PR person, or you went to John Markoff at the New York Times or Wired, and they wrote a story about you. That was like the extent of it. And people were rooting for tech because tech was cool. Like, I got an iPod, I play music on it. But it wasn't, your whole life wasn't mitigated by the tech industry. And really, all of a sudden Google, you're like, I kind of live in Gmail, and, I'm using Google all the time, and they own YouTube, and I'm kind of into that. And then really, I think Facebook was a major moment in time when, the people started to see the dark side of tech. Like, this is like resulting in bad things. Right. And this is taking a lot of people's time. And this guy doesn't seem to have the great intent with people. And,
and you start hating people that you were so excited to reconnect with this person. Next thing you know, you're fighting with them about nonsense.
Marriages are getting broken up. It's getting contentious. And really social media, Facebook specifically, Instagram, it started having like a certain toxicity to it. And then the world kind of started to turn on tech a bit. We went from like these nerds who were making cool shit that people could enjoy, but, generally made people's lives better, to, is this actually making my life better? It's kind of not. And I don't trust that guy. And really, Zuckerberg was that guy, I think, that a lot of people were like, I don't know if I trust that guy. Now, Elon was a hero to people like, oh, it's like making this electric car. It's going to save the planet. And yeah, wow, we're going to go to Mars. Cool. Like,
right.
It's just like very
the people
simple.
that hate him now thought he was the second coming. It's incredible.
I think, yeah, because really, when he was doing Tesla, he went bankrupt, basically. He's been public about this. I'm not speaking out of school. He basically went bankrupt, and a friend of ours was loaning him money to keep him afloat, and I famously had dinner with him one time, and he showed me the Model S car on his phone. He was getting in the middle of his divorce, and he's told the story publicly. And I was like, I have a couple of $1 million I can loan you. He's like, don't bother. I'm done. Tesla's going to go out of business in 2 weeks. And I was like, really? And he's like, because I had seen in Gawker, they said it was going to go out of business next month. I said, is it true? And he's like, no, it's not true. I was like, oh, thank God. He's like, we have 2 weeks, not 4. Whoa. And I was like, whoa. So this is like right before Christmas. Who did
you take the money from? I don't know how I don't know the story.
Well, we were at Boa eating a steak, just the two of us. And he was...
you were at Boa on Sunset?
On Sunset,
It's literally the only thing from LA that I miss. That was my favorite restaurant.
Great,
and it's the only place I go back to.
Two of us went there in our Roadsters. He had P1 or P2, the prototype, and I had number 16. And he just had texted me like, hey, on our Blackberries, like to date this conversation, let's have dinner. I'm feeling kind of blue. I need some company. So I went and had dinner with him, and he was like, yeah, it's kind of, I was like, what's going on with the rocket ship company? It's like, yeah, well, we blew 2 up. I said, well, what happens? When's the next launch? He's like, oh, the launch is coming next month. And I said, what happens if you blow that one up? He's like, SpaceX is gone. And I'm like, okay, well, I got a couple of $1 million. I'll ship it to you on Monday, and whatever, I'll loan it to you. And he's like, don't bother. Not necessary. I said, well, Elon, there's got to be some good news. And he said, yeah, actually, I got some good news today. I said, okay. And he takes out his BlackBerry, says, don't tell anybody. And he shows me the clay models of the Model S. And he's flipping through it. On the BlackBerries, they used to have that little trackpad thing and the ball.
That little thing.
Yeah, and he's flipping through it. And I looked at it, and it literally was clay models, like little clay. But I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that's nicer than the Porsche. It's like, I've never seen a car. Yeah. It looks kind of like a futuristic Taurus or something. It's like, what is it going to cost? It's 4 doors and it's like a sedan. He's like, yeah. He's like, what should I call it? And I was like, I don't know. You call it like the Model T. He's like, yeah, we can't call it the Model T. He's going to call it the Model S because T is still, Ford still has the trademark. We actually looked into that. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good name. Model S is good. Like ST, whatever, sedan. And I said, what's it going to cost? And he said, I think I can do it for $50,000. I said, if you can do that for $50,000, you'll change the fucking world. This company has to survive. And like he wound up over Christmas in St. Bart's closing some funding from some friends of ours, and he kept the company alive. But when I got home, I went to my wife, Jade. I said, give me the checkbook. And I wrote 2 $50,000 checks. And I said, dear Elon, great looking car. I'll take 2. Love, Jason.
And when did those get delivered?
I sent it to him. I kid you not. He put it in his desk drawer. He didn't cash the checks because he didn't want to take the $100,000 and blow it. But I knew that would like maybe give him an extra day in payroll. And I told Jade that 100's done. We're never going to get it. But I wanted to like let him know I was in his corner. And I kid you not, like 3 or 4 months later, the checks get cashed. He had handed them to somebody and said, here's the first orders. I got the first orders. Literally 3 years later. Your serial number reservation, 0000001, 0000073. So I called him and said, hey, Elon, I can't take number 1. You got to take number 1. He's like, take number 1. I got 4 of these prototypes. I got no garage space left.
Right. He's probably don't have a number on him.
And he said, I want you to have it because you were the first person to order it. And it's like very important for me for you to have it. And then I had the 73, and I gave that to my friend Sky Dayton, who had supported me.
How'd you drop all the way to 73?
Well, he had other people who were investors in the company and who
so
he wanted to
greedy
include.
With the 2. So.
Getting 1 and 2 would have been a little over the top. Anyway, I think he just said, like, put this at the end of the other orders.
Right.
So maybe there were actually, that was probably what happened. I don't know exactly. And I still have that car, and the car's worth like $1 million, and it's going to go in the Smithsonian. So
wow. That's
if the Smithsonian's listening, I got to find somewhere to put it.
If you're looking for an unfiltered lens into the world of tomorrow, go check out our tech playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.